So my name is Dr. Emily Frank. I am a pediatrician who works in the emergency room, and I also teach at Life Academy. And so ever since March 2020, I have been thinking not only what does this mean in terms of illness in this country, but what does this mean in terms of my classroom and how I work with staff at my school and how I teach kids. And so COVID transmission, next slide, please. I want to ground us in this important idea because my goal for this 10 minutes is to help you think about when you are at school live with kids, how can we make those split second decisions that we make every single day as educators with foundational knowledge about COVID? And how can we make those decisions in a way that keeps everyone safe and that's also sustainable for your day to day? And so I want to ground us, and this goes back to what Dr. Gandhi was saying, is the vast majority of COVID is spread through droplets. So droplets are these little water particles that fall to the ground, usually within about 15 minutes. That is the primary way that COVID is transmitted. Less common is aerosolized particles. So those are teeny tiny particles that are able to remain suspended in the air, but these tend to spread out as opposed to concentrate. Least common, as Dr. Gandhi brought up, is surface transmission, meaning someone's droplets get onto a surface, those droplets remain infectious, they get on somebody else's hands, and they make it into a person's eyes, nose, or mouth. Next slide, please. And so that's important, all right? You cannot get COVID infection simply from touching something, all right? The particles, the viral particles have to get into your eyes, nose, or mouth. Next slide, please. So another really important concept I want you to take with you is what a high-risk exposure is. So a high-risk exposure is close person-to-person contact. That means within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes of someone who is infectious. So if you walk past someone who has COVID, or if you are in their 6-foot bubble, even for 1 minute, that is not considered a high risk exposure, particularly not if you're vaccinated. Next slide, please. As I talk about risk mitigation, I want to remind us of these 3 steps. So in order to get infected, the particles of the virus need to leave the body of someone who's infected, survive, and then come in contact with the eyes, nose, or mouth of a healthy person. Next slide. Let's skip this one. All right, so on the left is how the rest of the world think things work in my classroom. I can only wish. On the right is what my classroom actually feels like. And so how teaching is so hard as it is, like how on earth do we layer public health on top of that? Next slide. So we need to think about layers. And this is called the Swiss cheese model. It's adopted from the world of engineering. And the idea is that, like, if we think about our cars, there's not just one thing that keeps us safe. We have airbags, we have brakes, we have speed limits, we have stop signs, we have stoplights. There's layers and layers and layers that keep us safe and reduce our risk. And the same is true with COVID. We are enacting layers and layers and layers to help keep us and when I say us, I mean like us as a community, students, families, staff, safe. Next slide. So one really important piece of that slice is preventing the virus from leaving the body. And so to do that, it's really important that people who have symptoms stay home. And by symptoms, I mean a variety of symptoms: fever, cough, headache, loss of taste or smell, new runny nose, diarrhea, not just cough or body aches. So new symptoms that are not from ongoing conditions. And if that's something you or somebody in your household has, it's important for you to stay home until you're tested. If you're not vaccinated and anybody in your household is awaiting a non-routine COVID result or has had a high-risk exposure, then that's another reason to stay home. Staying home I know is so hard. I would rather come to school with the flu than try to write lesson plans for someone else. But in the times of this COVID pandemic, it is extremely important that all of us stay home if we're experiencing symptoms. Even if we think, oh, it's just a migraine due to whatever, we really need to be vigilant. Next slide. Um, symptom screening is out, I think, on Parent Square. I did a Google survey today, so I'm not going to dwell on this. Next slide. Physically distancing, 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. No, wait, 3 feet. Wait, what? So, where did 6 feet come from? The vast majority of droplets fall within 3 feet. So, what we did was we said, let's be conservative. We're going to double that, 6 feet. We should all stay 6 feet apart. Next slide. And 6 feet apart is good. However, recently, some data showed us that 3 feet can be okay in certain situations. That is, in elementary schools where there is universal mask use, students can be 3 feet apart. The teacher, however, still needs to be 6 feet away, or the adult educator. Also, in a middle and high school area, if there's universal masking and low community transmission, students can be 3 feet apart. Or if there's universal mask use and cohorting, students can safely be 3 feet apart. Next slide. Who should be 6 feet apart? Adults, always, and students from adults, people who are unmasked, and middle and high school students who are either not cohorted or are in areas of high community spread. Next slide. Our school looks like this. I hope yours does too, with markers and reminders. And this I found actually educationally is the toughest thing to remind folks is remember we need to space each other. Remember we need to try to maintain our distance between each other. Next slide, please. Masking. I am short on time. You already know a lot about masks. There's 3 points I want to leave you with. One, using 2 layers. A surgical mask covered by a cloth mask is nearly as effective as an N95. An N95 is a specialized mask that is most appropriate for those who are going to have prolonged close exposure, meaning within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. Some of you have seen these valved masks. Those are really great for fire season and really terrible for COVID protection because they let out concentrated, it lets out your bodily breathing in a concentrated manner. So avoid valved masks. Next slide, please. What if a student takes off their mask? Well, this is why we have so many different layers of the Swiss cheese. If possible, it's great to have the student step out if they are taking off their mask. If that is not feasible, have the student step at least 6 feet away. When you lose one layer of Swiss cheese, do your best to implement the others. For students who cannot tolerate masks, I want to remind us that many students who won't tolerate can learn with time and focused goals and incremental steps. If a student absolutely cannot tolerate a mask, that is where we really need to maximize our distancing, our ventilation, our symptom screening, and all the other slices of cheese. Next slide, please. This was sort of touched on by Dr. Gandhi. So the most important thing is that that we don't have infectious droplets on our hands when we touch our eyes, nose, and mouth. And so hand washing is going to be really key. This can be with hand sanitizer as long as hands aren't visibly dirty. And this is going to be more high yield for us than these frequent deep cleanings. Now, there are cases where regular hand washing may be challenging for a variety of reasons. And in these cases, there might be more of a role for cleaning. But well, I won't go into antimicrobial resistance, but the key tenet here is really around hand washing, and that can be with hand sanitizer or with soap and water. Next slide, please. A face shield, I just want to remind you, it's not the same as a mask. It is helpful in reminding us not to touch our face. Next slide. Cohorting. So the idea behind cohorting is that it allows for fewer exposures and easier contact tracing. Somebody asked in the chat, like, what should be the size of a cohort? How many cohorts should a child be in? So the size of a cohort really depends on students' ability to physically distance from each other. And then the question for how many cohorts should students be in? I mean, I would say ideally one cohort, but what it comes down to is how many people are you comfortable with that child being exposed to, and what is going to be the ripple effect if someone's infected on quarantining, and your ability to contact trace that and implement that. Next slide, please. I'm going to skip testing because Dr. Bardock spoke about it. Next slide. Ventilation is helpful. It is not the be all end all, but it is really helpful. Opening windows can create ventilation. Using air cleaners, air filters can help ventilation. HEPA filters can increase ventilation. Maximizing the amount of air coming from outside versus inside when it's circulating can be helpful. And so all of these are yet